Good afternoon. It's Thursday, November 8th, 2018 at 1 o'clock Eastern Time, and this is Advancement Live. I'm your host, Andrew Gosen. Today, we are revisiting a favorite topic of ours, Giving Days, but we have a new angle from which to approach this perennially popular topic. Giving Days have been an increasingly common fundraising tool for colleges and units over the past 6 years, ever since Columbia proved that the concept could work for higher education back in 2012. Over that time, we've seen increasingly impressive results. Purdue, for instance, with their 2018 Purdue Day of Giving, raised $37.6 million, which, as far as I know, is a record for a higher ed day of giving in the US. Or if you'd rather focus on participation instead of dollars, Notre Dame Day 2018 brought in over 31,500 gifts. These are pretty amazing numbers by any standard. But schools like Columbia, Purdue, and Notre Dame are not the only places that are finding successes with the basic Day of Giving model. We're also seeing smaller schools using the Giving Day approach, adopting the model to reflect their own unique institutional contexts and needs. This, in turn, produces differentiation in terms of tactics, strategies, goals, and partnerships, and that is the focus of today's episode. How do you develop and execute a successful day of giving if you're working in a small shop with a limited budget? Today's guests are going to give us insight into how they made Giving Day magic happen at Wentworth Institute of Technology and Hamline University. But before we get into that, let me give a shout out to our sponsors. Advancement Live is part of the Higher Ed Live Network. Our episodes offer you direct access to the best and brightest minds in education. Be a part of our live broadcasts by sharing your knowledge. You can participate in today's episode by tweeting us using Higher Ed Live, the hashtag. Also, all of our episodes are free and easy to access in the video archives at higheredlive.com, or you can take Higher Ed Live with you on the go by subscribing to the podcast. Today's episode is made possible by iModules. We just tweeted a link to their blog featuring new posts about effectively engaging graduates of the last decade alumni and strategies to increase donations at your next event. iModules, we appreciate the support. And Higher Ed Live is produced by M. Stoner, a digital-first agency committed to tailored solutions that drive real results. Gather your advancement teams for a jam-packed 3-day online conference. That's right, M. Stoner's Fall Conference, Advanced Marketing for Higher Education. The registration for that is now open. Learn how to tailor communication to better reach alumni, use video to engage and inspire donors, improve the user experience for your giving site, and much more. We just tweeted out a link that will let you learn more about this conference. M. Stoner, we appreciate your support for this as well. Now I'd like to introduce today's guests. First off, we have Katie DePrimo, who is Director of Annual Giving at Wentworth Institute of Technology. In this role, she is responsible for designing and implementing a multi-channel annual giving program that supports the university, including overcame, direct mail, e-solicitation, the student calling program, crowdfunding, other special fundraising opportunities, and student, parent, and faculty staff giving. Katie has a bachelor's and a master's degree from Elmira College. Katie D, as we will refer to her during this episode, is joined by Katie McFall, who we will refer to as Katie M. Katie M is Director of Annual Giving Programs at Hamline University. She has been with Hamline University since 2015, and November 13th will mark her 4th Giving Day there. Katie, we completely appreciate your willingness to join us for this conversation when you're so close to your 4th Giving Day. Her higher ed experience includes the University of Houston, where she served as Annual Giving Director. She's also served at several human service organizations, but has also spent a significant part of her career in public broadcasting as the Membership Director at Houston Public Media in Houston and at KERA in the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area. Katie has a bachelor's degree from Texas Christian University, who I hear are having their Giving Day today. Go TCU. And she has a master's degree from the University of Chicago. Katie M, welcome. And our final guest today is a frequent visitor to Advancement Live, Mirko Widenhorn, who is a strategic consultant and senior account manager at iModules. Mirko joined the iModules team in July of 2013, bringing over 11 years of higher education experience. Most recently, he was the Director of Alumni Relations and Annual Giving at Wilkes University. At iModules, he provides consulting services related to engagement scoring, strategic planning, as well as in-depth analyses of client websites and programming. Mirko is a Drew University graduate and recently completed his Ed.D. in Higher Education Administration at Wilkes University, focusing on whether giving differs based on participation in different types of alumni programming. Mirko, that's actually a fascinating topic, and I may ask you back to walk us through the results there, because I suspect that that's a topic that is near and dear to the hearts of many of our audience today. And with that, I would like to get the conversation going. I'd like to start by asking the Katies to tell us a little bit more about their institutions and how their annual giving programs are structured, since the focal point of today's episode is doing giving days on a reasonable budget in a smaller shop. So let's kick things off with Katie D, who is going to tell us about how things look at Wentworth. Katie, the floor is yours.
Great, thanks, Andrew. Hi, everyone. I am the Director of Annual Giving at Wentworth Institute of Technology, a private university with a focus in STEM education in Boston, Massachusetts. Wentworth was founded in 1904, and we offer associate, bachelor's, and master's degrees, and are known for our engineering and construction management majors, our co-op program, and our hands-on experiential learning model. Wentworth students are encouraged to be innovative, collaborate across disciplines, and think without a box, all in an ideal location. Our full-time undergraduate student body is made up of approximately 4,000 students, and we have around 30,000 solicitable alumni, 80 to 85% of which live in New England, with a majority within 50 miles of Boston. Our annual giving team is made up of 3 full-time staff members, myself, the director, who oversees the entire program and am responsible for planning and implementing our multi-channel program. For the past 2 years, I have been the staff person who has spearheaded the entirety of our Day of Giving planning and execution. Our associate director, who is responsible for marketing, all of that, direct and electronic, soup to nuts, and an annual giving officer who manages our student calling program. Every 6 months, we have a co-op student who assists with social media content, design elements, and assisting with our senior challenge. The annual giving team sits within the Office of Institutional Advancement, which has 26 full-time employees, including our alumni relations, major and planned giving, corporate and foundation relations, and data services teams, and our university events, communications, and web services teams. Our Day of Giving staff, though, has been limited to about 2 individuals who oversee all planning and execution, with 2 or 3 staff members providing support. We have made some noise on Giving Tuesday for the past 3 years and have had 2 formal days of giving called #YourPieceOfThePie Day of Giving. Our first efforts were held on March 14th, 2017, and last year we did 31 hours and 41 minutes of giving on March 13th and 14th. You can tell that we really like pie here at Wentworth.
As someone who's been at an institute, Pi Day Days of Giving not once but twice. Our Pi Day Day of Giving in 2019 is on the calendar already. We like pie as well, and it's always fun to figure out how you can work pie puns into your marketing. We're actually thinking that that's going to be one of our social challenges this year. Who can come up with the most ludicrous pie pun and share it on social media? Nothing like some great user-generated content. So Katie, thank you for that overline of how things work at WIT. And now Katie M, I'd like to invite you to do the same thing for Hamline.
Okay, great. Hamline is Minnesota's very first university, founded in 1854. We are located in St. Paul, and we are a liberal arts university. This year, our student body, we have just over 2,100 undergraduates and over 1,400 graduate students. So we provide, we have a bachelor's of science and arts and master's degrees, and even some doctorate programs. We're a very mission-oriented university and with strong emphasis on social justice and inclusion. 100% of our students participate in either an internship or collaborative research or service learning. It's a very big part of the educational experience here. How we are, we have a centralized advancement team that raises funds for the entire university, but annual giving, which I'm the director of, it focuses mostly on undergraduate alumni. Our team is a team of 4, though we're understaffed. Right now, we're a team of 3. I'm the director, and I have responsibility for the overall program and have been kind of the chief spearheader of our giving days since I came in 2015. We have our team has 2 assistant directors. One is assistant director of marketing, and she just joined our team in March. She is responsible for our appeals and digital strategy. Again, soup to nuts, like Wentworth. Our other assistant director manages our class agent program, our class volunteers. I'm reworking this position to actually to be the point person for our fundraising events, including our giving day. So we'll see how that goes next year. We also have a coordinator who hasn't traditionally been involved in planning the giving day, but this year is very heavily involved. Historically, a member of our alumni relations team has had a dotted line to annual giving for about 0.3 FTE and has had a lot to do with our giving day planning. That structure changed in July, and we are really missing her very much. But we are learning to do this with an even smaller team than we've had before. And our advancement structure is very similar to Wentworth's. We have annual giving sits within institutional advancement at Hamline, and as does alumni relations, conference and event management, advancement ops, and foundations. So a very similar setup.
Great, thank you so much. And how many days of giving have you done at Hamline?
This will be, excuse me, this will be our 5th day of giving. And,
okay.
And ours is branded Power of One Day.
Power of One Day. Okay, audience, I have tweeted out links to both Power of One Day, which is happening next week, and the most recent WIT Day of Giving, so that you can see the structure of the days and take a look at the branding and stuff as KDM and KD describe them in a little bit greater detail shortly. But before moving on to that, I'd like to hand things over to Mirko. Mirko, you work across a broad range of institutions, some large, some small, in your capacity with iModules. I was wondering if you could give us a quick overview of what you're seeing in terms of how smaller schools are dealing with days of giving and online fundraising in general.
Sure, absolutely. So I think let's start with just days of giving generally. And I have to say, first of all, the large majority of schools that we work with do a day of giving at this point, and that includes a lot of the smaller schools we work with, as you see in the episode today. I think it's become the norm for higher ed fundraising to have a day of giving. I can think of only very few schools that choose not to do that, and it goes back to the points that you mentioned at the beginning of the episode, Andrew, that it's been proven to generate excitement, to bring new donors in, to resonate with the younger population that I think all of us struggle with a little bit more in terms of getting them to support the institution through the regular annual fund or annual giving strategies. So I think that's one key element to keep in mind. But if you are a smaller school, I think it's also important to realize that you don't have to do what Columbia has done or what Purdue has done, or any of those schools with hundreds of people in their advancement office instead of 25 total and 3 on the annual giving team or 4. You really want to think about, okay, what are the things that we can do as a small shop to, 1, have a day of giving if you haven't, and 2, have it be successful. And if you have done a day of giving before, as both of these schools have, think about what you can adjust for the next year. That doesn't mean you have to completely revamp everything, but you always want something to be a little bit new or different. So I want to talk about days of giving, and I want to touch briefly on Giving Tuesday just as part of that. And I want to talk about them separately. So let's separate out days of giving from Giving Tuesday, because I think timing is a question that schools often ask themselves of when should we do a day of giving? And if you do choose to do a standalone day of giving, there are, in my opinion, some benefits to that. You are not competing with Giving Tuesday noise, so to speak. You can focus more on a day that might resonate with your population, like Pi Day, like we heard from Wentworth. And we'll hear more about why Hamline chose their day in a little bit from Katie. So those are some things to think about. And you can also put it at a time of year where you may not have as much going on. So as a smaller team, those might be some of the benefits to looking at doing a standalone day of giving. Conversely, I think we are all aware of Giving Tuesday. Well, I'm sure we're all aware of Giving Tuesday and the power of Giving Tuesday. So just to give you a couple of numbers here related to Giving Tuesday, last year, 40% of donations made on Giving Tuesday were toward education-related causes. That's a huge percentage if you take a step back and think about it. In addition, schools that we work with raised over $6.7 million just on Giving Tuesday last year, and 29,000 transactions on that day. The reason I wanted to share some of those numbers with you is because if you are new to Day of Giving or you're trying to figure out when to do something, Giving Tuesday might be the right answer for you, because in a way it's easier to start with because you don't have to create as much communication and excitement, because the excitement from Giving Tuesday is already there. The challenge with Giving Tuesday is getting your message out around everything else that's going on that day and all of the other nonprofits that are communicating about supporting the institutions. But for especially a small school, I think it's worthwhile looking at Giving Tuesday as a real opportunity. And I would say every school, higher education institution should have some type of presence on Giving Tuesday, even if that's just sending out one email saying, hey, remember us, we're here as well for Giving Tuesday. But that's an easy thing to do. But so circling back, so as you think about days of giving, be mindful about when you might want to plan that, and do consider Giving Tuesday as an option depending on what you've already done. And let me stop there for now, Andrew. I know we'll talk a little bit more in detail later.
Thanks, Mirko. I'd like to turn now to getting deeper into our examples. And Katie D, I'd love to start with you. I'm going to ask you some questions about how things work at Wentworth. And let's start off with, why did you initially decide to explore the Day of Giving model?
Yeah, so like Mirko said, and his recommendation for starting on Giving Tuesday, that's exactly what we did in FY 15, 16, and in FY 17 as well. We wanted to separate our Day of Giving from our traditional Giving Tuesday presence, because we saw that other schools were having success by having separate days of giving. Our students, our alumni, and our entire community have a lot of pride in the university, and we really wanted to create a day for everyone to come together and collectively show that pride through philanthropy.
Thanks. My next question has to do with how your Day of Giving fits into your overall fundraising strategy and calendar. I think one of the things that strikes me as distinctive about where we are now as an industry, as opposed to 5 years ago when everybody was doing this for the first time, is that we're gradually getting a better fix on what Days of Giving can or can't do, and how they fit into the rest of what we're doing as sort of a piece of the puzzle. Could you walk us through that, please?
Yeah, so our Days of Giving have been in the third quarter of our fiscal year. And like Mirko said, we picked a day that we weren't competing with others. The quarter three is typically slower for us, and we don't have a lot of university events taking place, so we weren't getting lost in other messages. Our goals have always been participation driven for our Day of Giving, which is why Q3 was ideally the best time for us to have our Day of Giving. We could encourage second gifts from our first half of the fiscal year donors, encourage fulfillment from open pledges from our student calling program, drive our reunion participation, and of course, focus on the 3 essentials of renewal, reactivation, and acquisition across the board. Having our Day of Giving in the 3rd quarter also gave us the last quarter to push towards our goals, regardless of the outcomes of each Day of Giving. So that's exactly why we chose the 3rd quarter.
Was the Pi Day theme, was that just serendipity? Because there was a plausible sort of technology and engineering angle that you could work on there?
Yeah, so great question. So we chose Pi Day because all of our students use Pi almost daily. We kind of wanted to be a little nerdy about it, but make Pi Day fun at the same time.
Nothing wrong with that. So tell us a little bit more about how your Day of Giving is actually structured.
So we knew we were going to need extra hands to help spread the word. So we recruited our official university social media managers to help. We also used our Leopard Pack, which is our cohort of alumni volunteers, to help share our messaging. We created toolkits for them, and of course, we sent them swag bags full of goodies for the day. Because we were small staffed, we knew that the more hands we had to spread the word, that was how we were going to find success. We also kept things simple. We sent a save the date postcard 6 to 8 weeks prior to the day, as well as a series of emails leading up to the Day of Giving. We also had a suite of emails taking place during the 24-hour period, followed by a results email to our entire community within 24 hours of the day ending. Tons of social media presence before, during, and after. And we had also used our student callers to promote the event leading up to our Day of Giving. We also stewarded all of our donors with a postcard signed by a student. We really knew that we had to keep the day simple because we had 2 full-time staff members planning and executing an entire day for us. So to keep it simple, we included our entire community. We didn't set any limitations for class years or constituencies. We wanted to get in front of everyone. Our goals also were very simple to understand. Our Day of Giving was on Pi Day. We really embraced the theme of Pi and set a goal of 314 donors the first day, or the first year, I'm sorry, and 628 on year 2. That's 2 Pi. So our messaging was also consistent across segments. That way we didn't have to work on lots of different emails, lots of different save the dates. We wanted to just be able to hit send and go. We also wanted everyone to participate and know that every gift made a difference. So with a small staff, we also had to keep things incredibly manageable and executable. We used our design firm to help with all of our branding and creation of images, postcards, email banners, website hero images, social media images, you name it. That was really where the bulk of our budget was spent on the day. And then we really relied heavily on the tools that iModules provides in Encompass for us to have a successful Day of Giving. That included emails, creating a website presence, and using the progress indicator. If you don't have the bandwidth or budget to do a full website takeover, consider creating a microsite. We removed the navigation from our alumni.wit.edu/pi page, so our constituents really only had one choice, and it was to make a gift. We directed all of our constituents to that page in every communication, and we also created some buttons that provided more information, frequently asked questions, and spread the word resources. And of course, you can't be successful without having a hashtag, so our hashtag was #YourPieceOfThePie, and we used it on everything. We also created a social media toolkit so our volunteers and our social media power users on campus could share the message across every single platform. And we also put this on our website so that constituents who hadn't raised their hand to volunteer could find the messaging to share themselves. We also wanted to keep things exciting. We really put our own innovation and collaboration skills to the test. We worked with our campus partners to create a video that we shared with our community via email and on social media to really get excitement going. Because it was Pi Day, we wanted our mascot, the leopard, to pie a member of our community after we hit our donor goal during our all campus pie social. Our campus community would do the voting, but every member of our community, regardless of where they were around the world, would be able to see who was pied via live stream. We also
ended up winning.
I'll get to that. So on the day of, we also had social media challenges to encourage our donors and volunteers to make their gift and share their reason for giving. We also announced some challenges via email throughout the day, including things like Red Sox tickets, Boston Pops tickets, and Dunkin' Donuts gift cards. I don't think we could have been more Boston if we tried that day. And our alumni relations team already had these events ready. They were on the calendar, so they just donated tickets for us. To keep things even more exciting, Mother Nature had her own way of keeping us on our toes. For anyone who's in the Northeast, you're probably thinking to yourself right now, weren't there nor'easters the past 2 Pi days? If you weren't asking yourself that, but you're curious, the answer is yes, there were, and they really impacted our execution. In 2017, we had originally planned our day around a little bit of snow or a little bit of rain that might have impacted our on-campus activities, but we never thought that we were going to have a major winter storm impact not only Boston, but the entire Northeast. Our campus was closed, so none of our on-campus activities took place, including our Hire Professor Challenge. We just couldn't get enough people on social media to vote for who they wanted to pie, so the leopard never actually ended up pieing someone, unfortunately. But we did rely heavily on our volunteers and the power of social media to really spread the word. At the 11th hour, we had to incorporate snow day messaging into all of our social media toolkits, and we had to create calling lists for our major gift teams so they could call from home. Our volunteers were really the heroes of our first day of giving, and I'm still amazed by the power of social media and how our alumni, student, and university power users who are not fundraisers were able to rally our community in a blizzard. On our second day of giving in 2018, we followed the exact same plan leading up to our day of giving. Save the date, emails, social media presence, updating our microsite hosted by iModules, updated our social media toolkits, and really rallied our troops. We brought our student calling program back in-house in FY18, so we were really excited to hold extra calling shifts for the 31 hours and 41 minutes of giving, and we knew that those student conversations were going to drive participation. We set higher goals, created some more challenges, and then the unthinkable happened. We had another nor'easter. I don't know what the odds of lightning striking in the same place twice are, but it happened here. So again, at the 11th hour, we modified our toolkits and let our volunteers know we needed them to do the exact same thing that they did the year before. Gave major gift officers calling lists. My team had calling lists. Our campus emails were set, and we knew that the good news was that since we had planned 31 hours and 41 minutes, our campus activities were going to take place for students, faculty, and staff on the second day. But Mother Nature, being the wonderful thing that she is, had other plans again for us. We were closed again on our second day of giving. They were really the only 2 snowstorms and 2 snow days of the year that we had. This storm was a lot worse than in FY17. A lot of people lost power, including my entire staff. So we really couldn't do much. We didn't have we didn't have service to make phone calls. We couldn't charge our computers. We couldn't really get on social media. So we were really doing as much as we could with the wall that we were up against. But if we learned anything the first year, it was to embrace thinking without a box and to be as creative as we possibly could. And we were successful every year, in our opinion, because we were able to make a lot of noise on social media and really give our volunteers the tools they needed to be successful. We embraced the snow, and we really used it in our messaging.
Thanks, Katie. Cornell Giving Day 2017 also got caught up in the same blizzard, and we had a similar experience. And I guess going through it once, you're much better prepared to tackle it a second time. When people tell you should have a disaster preparedness plan, they're not joking. It's not fun when it's happening, but it would be much worse if you hadn't thought it through in advance. And we actually, before we went live today, we kicked around that idea and all agreed that a stitch in time saves 9. So could you tell us quickly about your results for your giving days?
Yeah, so the first year, our goal was 314 individual donors, and we exceeded our goal. But the second year, with our goal of 628 donors, unfortunately, we did not hit that donor goal. But like I said before, we saw the day as being successful. We were able to acquire new donors. And the second year, we actually saw more participation from our students and faculty and staff, even though we didn't have any presence on campus those 2 days. So we highlighted that in our successes.
Great. And just to wrap up what we're learning about your giving day, given the staff constraints that you're operating under, it sounds like partnerships are really the key to pulling it off.
Definitely. Collaborating with our on-campus partners, as well as our alumni, our students, they were the reason we were successful. I strongly encourage anyone who is thinking about doing a day of giving or is rethinking how they're going to execute, use your campus partners as much as you can. Your power users are going to save the day. They have the biggest following, and their message is going to be seen by as many people as possible, so take advantage of them.
Great. Thank you. Katie M., let's shift gears. Could you tell us about it?
Sure, and I'm having a little hard time hearing you. We'll see. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Great. Okay, fabulous. Hamline started its Power of One Day, its annual giving day, a year before I came. So I first came in 2015. Ours was in the fall of 2014, our FY15. Minnesota has a much beloved 24-hour giving day event of its own that's really has a really prominent presence in the Twin Cities where we are. It's called Give to the Max Day. And that's been going on since, I think, around 2009. Hamline had participated in that for a few years, and it is a great day for Minnesota, raising a lot of funds, just really increasing the culture of philanthropy across the state. But for several years running, there were significant technological problems resulting in the giving site being down. Our day was dependent on technology that we couldn't control. Also, the transaction fee was a bit high. They've made some changes in recent years, but it was a bit high, meaning that the less of every donation made it to Hamline. And additionally, the acknowledgement email that that donors received, it came from an organization that wasn't us. So stewardship was not something that, although we did make sure and steward donors, it just wasn't ideal for us. So my predecessor and the annual giving team decided to create Hamline's own giving day. Considering the timing of Give to the Max Day, we decided to hold it before Give to the Max Day. So for the last 4 years, Power of One Day has been held the day before Give to the Max Day. This year, it's 2 days before. We decided to brand our own day, and we could control the message, the technology, and the shape of the day. And we could also really develop a full stewardship plan for our donors.
Great. Can you tell us how Give to the Max Day fits into your overall fundraising?
Well, yeah. So we no longer participate in Give to the Max Day. It's Power of One Day, but we do still have donors who make contributions to Hamline on Give to the Max Day, and we haven't technically counted those for Power of One Day. We really stay within that 24-hour day as much as we can. Our giving day is in the fall. Give to the Max Day is always in November, and so placing Power of One Day before that, ours is always in November as well. That, you know, in the future we could decide to change things up, but right now it's working well for us. It does make for a very hectic fall. The rest of our fall program, you know, we have appeals and our calling program going on. We start to hear on the phone, we start to hear alumni saying, "Oh, they're waiting to give until Power of One Day." So our alumni really do anticipate the day, and it's a fun day. So it fits into our fall calendar. It's our second quarter of the year. In terms of our overall fundraising strategy, we use it as primarily as a way to improve alumni participation and to reach alumni, especially who graduated after 2000. Like other institutions, we've had a decline in the role of our phone campaign and alumni participation, and this really helps to fill in where phone is dropping off. When looking at the prime motivator for the first gift of the fiscal year by decade and by gift source, Power of One Day has been that motivator for alumni who graduated since 2000. So I guess to spell that out a little further, for alumni who graduated 2000 to 2009, when comparing the sources of the first gift of the fiscal year for them, so whether it's giving day, direct mail, phone, magazine insert, or personal ask, etc., our giving day represented the largest percentage of gifts. And FY18, 19% of all first gifts from alumni who graduated in that decade came from Power of One Day. And the other sources had smaller percentages.
This is a trend that's actually holding steady over time. That's pretty cool.
It is. Yeah, I've measured this for the last 3 fiscal years, and we've seen that. What's interesting is when we look at the next decade, alumni who graduated 2010 to 2017, that number jumped to 52%. So, and then 15% of them gave by email or just a general web gift as their first gift of the fiscal year, and then only 8 was from phone. So, so we're seeing that this is a very powerful motivator for our more recent alumni. That being said, we received gifts from alumni who graduated in the 40s last year. So we do get participation from every decade, but I do see a steeper climb really starting in the 70s and then 80s and 90s and then 2000. It really skyrockets.
Great. What sort of goals have you set for yourself?
So this year, let me maybe first speak to successes last year. So last year we raised $184,600 some odd dollars day of. We had 634 donations and 634 donors and 744 gifts. Our goal last year was 700 gifts, and we surpassed it maybe by 10 o'clock. Our day starts at midnight and ends at midnight. This year, we are structuring things a little bit differently. So I haven't, my goal hasn't necessarily changed, but but my expectations may have changed a little bit. We'll see. It would be great if, if we hit 800 gifts, and we'll see where the donations come in from there.
So what would you highlight as the secret sauce? The ways you've managed to pull off 5 days of giving, getting great traction with young alumni, especially given the fact that you're operating with a small shop and limited resources.
Yeah, we have a project plan. This year, it's become clear that it's needed some serious revision because of new staff and understanding. While we may have a task outlined in the plan, it may not be clear why what fully is entailed in that task. Our project plan has been in Excel, but we've used Asana too. It's a free asset. We typically set the date in January, February for the next year and start meeting in the summer every few weeks. And then we increase the frequency after the fall semester starts. Most of our budget goes into campus engagement. So we have a power room and we have t-shirts for the different student groups who are involved in Power of One Day through challenges. And we have opportunities for students to come and write thank you postcards. That engagement piece on campus has been really, really critical for us. Our giving day is a little bit different than most universities. We have more restricted funds that are given to on that day. It's worked for us, but we are also looking to gradually shift that model a little bit as we can too. And this year we are we worked with our senior AVP for finance to make sure that we are really supporting university priorities.
Great. Yeah, I'm really glad you highlighted the role of planning and software as being a sort of force multiplier in terms of being able to get lots done with reasonably few people. We've got a project manager here at Cornell who's done a marvelous job we use Basecamp. He has imposed rules that if it's not in Basecamp, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And the great virtue of that is it means you've got 1 year of heavy lifting where you're documenting all of your processes, but then the next year, you can almost just do a save as and then go in and do some editing.
Yeah.
It saves so much time and so much energy because you're not constantly reinventing the wheel. All right, well, Katie, thank you so much for that overview. Mirko, I'd love to turn over to you now and ask you for your reflections on what you've heard about the things that have worked at WIT and at Hamline, and how those relate to your more general observations about how smaller schools are able to pull off giving and deliver results that they need.
I think a couple of key things immediately come to mind just from what the Katies have shared. One is to keep it relatively simple. You don't, again, need to build the Columbia of giving days. You need to do something that makes sense for your campus. The other thing is to be inclusive as you're planning your day of giving. I would say that's from the get-go. You want to expand beyond your 3 or 4 person annual giving team. If you don't, there's no way for you to be successful with this day. So really think broadly about people, not only just within your division and getting them involved. So KDM had talked about the link that is unfortunately no longer there with alumni relations, but definitely involving them still in the planning process, as well as other people on campus. So think athletics. Think if you do have a designation focus, think about involving those units, and then also volunteers, which both Katies had mentioned. And I think we heard how important viral social media really is for Days of Giving. You have 24 hours. It can't just be your communications that make your Day of Giving a success. So that's why you really want to have a broad network of volunteers and continue to increase the volunteers that you work with. So I think those are 3 things, and none of those are difficult. It just takes planning ahead, which was another theme that I heard. You can't recruit volunteers at the last minute. You can't get people on campus on board at the last minute. And then the other thing that I would highlight is seeing Day of Giving really as an opportunity to educate the campus as well. So I think for a lot of small schools, that really gives advancement shops an opportunity to stand out a little bit. I mean, there are faculty at all schools that don't realize what advancement does day in and day out and doesn't realize why it's even a benefit, right? But I think Days of Giving give you that opportunity to have a solid presence on campus, to get students involved, to educate students about philanthropy, and also to increase faculty and staff support of the institution. And then I think the only other thing I would throw out, and both have touched on this, is think about your goals and make sure they're realistic. And I think both schools have been doing that. But I think sometimes when presidents hear Day of Giving, they're looking at the Columbia numbers and they talk about thousands of gifts coming in potentially. And then we sort of have to talk them down and explain, well, that won't work for our population, and we want this to be successful. So have realistic goals, but then also think about a stretch goal, because sometimes you do hit your goal earlier than you would have ever thought possible. And then be ready with that second message. Not quite the emergency of snow canceling classes, but have that second message ready for, hey, we did it, and now here's what we're aiming for. So just a couple of things to be thinking about as you either go into your next day of giving or start your first day of giving.
Thanks, Mirko. I really just want to underscore a point you just made. I think it's super important that the goal that you set needs to make sense for what you're trying to accomplish with your day of giving. You could put yourself in a position where you decide you're going to be driven exclusively by trying to ratchet your dollar number up every year. And we all work in fundraising, right? More dollars is a happy thing. I'm not disputing that at all. But it can complicate matters too, right? Because you could either get yourself in a situation where you are in a sort of continuously escalating arms race with yourself, where for reasons of optics, you have to just keep delivering bigger numbers every year. And you know what happens if 2008 happens again, and there's a recession. That's gonna make it difficult to keep the curve going the direction you want to go. I think there's also an intersection between participation level giving efforts and individual giving efforts. And if you started letting a day of giving begin to distort how you're working with individual donors for higher level gifts, that's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, days of giving can be used as motivators when you're talking about individual gifts at the higher level. But if you don't think through the connections between the two and how the one might impact the other, you could inadvertently find that you've created a headache for yourself that you didn't fully anticipate. So we've just talked about what has happened already with Days of Giving at WIT and at Hamline. And I'd like to turn now to, now that the KDs have a number of years of experience under their belts, what's next? Let's start with KDD, please. Could you tell us about what you're thinking of for future Days of Giving at Wentworth? What worked well that you want to double down on? Were there things that didn't pan out quite the way you'd hoped that you're going to let slide? And are there any new initiatives that you're going to try to bring online next time you do it?
Yeah, so we are not doing hashtag your piece of the pie Day of Giving this fiscal year. I think you just made a very good point of trying to keep things fresh and not just relying on your Day of Giving to help with participation. So we're not doing one this year, but with that being said, we are going to make some noise later this month around Giving Tuesday. We have a full day of student calling planned, and we'll have a website presence on our iModules site. Again, social media toolkits for our campus partners and select volunteers, and a suite of emails. We really just kind of want to encourage our constituents to give back on Giving Tuesday. And we are using a branding of a missing piece, and that you complete our puzzle. So we're going to make a little bit of noise, try to encourage giving, but nothing to get too lost in what's happening. So like I said, volunteers are really the key thing for us, and the toolkits that we prepared for them were a huge success. We have rolled out toolkits for other initiatives on campus. That way we're engaging our volunteers for more than just one day. We want them involved all year long. So that is something that's worked well that we have kind of taken with us throughout the fiscal year. We're also not doing a Day of Giving in March because of snow. Really don't want that to happen again to us this year. And we really saw the negative impacts of not being able to engage our campus community the way that we want to. So our next Day of Giving is going to be in FY20 on our university's Founders Day, which is in April. It's about 3 weeks after Pi Day, so we're hoping that 3-week window spring comes to Boston, and we'll be able to really engage our campus community much more than we have in the past. And we'll also be able to create a new brand, some new messaging, and iModules actually just launched their Day of Giving package, and that is something that we're really excited to be able to roll out next fiscal year as well. I'm sure Mirko is going to chat a little bit more about that, so I won't steal his thunder. And, you know, for one thing for us, we really just want to be able to, with our growing team, engage our IA team a little bit more than we have, creating more videos, live streaming our events on campus, student and donor messages, and really be able to allocate our resources towards a little bit more of a personal connection to our donors on Day of Giving than we've been able to do the past 2 years.
Great, thank you. Those all make sense. Let's turn to you now. In light of your 5 years of experience, what's working that you want to keep going with? What might you be emphasizing, and what's next for next week? I guess it's cast at this point, hasn't it? It's already underway.
It is. So yeah, we're excited about this week. You know, I think that that after Tuesday we'll do some debriefing and look at our learnings from this year. We have this year we've continued to provide social media toolkits. And for our for several different groups, we have HU insiders that are all of our volunteer boards, alumni volunteer boards, and we give them toolkits. We also have challenge-specific toolkits for different groups, and that's worked well for us. It's very time-intensive, but it also it brings some great results. So we want to make sure that we're getting the word out as effectively as possible. In Power of One days to come. I would also just say involving our campus partners is a really critical piece and injects a lot of energy into the day. And so we'll want to make sure that we find even new and more wonderful ways of doing that. I think this year we felt a little bit stretched. So we haven't involved quite as many, and that's a bit of a missing piece. So we'll reinvigorate that effort next year for sure. Yeah, those are kind of the big pieces for us, is that outreach and the engagement of our most critical folks on campus.
Great. Well, best of luck to you. We, and I hope all the audience watching us now, will be rooting for you as you go for number 6.
Yeah.
So Mirko, let's turn to you again now. A lot of the features that have been discussed are things that tend to be baked into the functionality of the increasing number of Giving Day platforms that are available to help those of us on the staff side do our work. And I was wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about what's cooking with the iModules Giving Day platform.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're really excited about this. As Katie D had mentioned, we have rolled out a lot of new features this year. Let me start with perhaps the most simple one, but one that I'm really excited about, which is PayPal support. So all of individuals who are using sites with us or who are using our platform can now pay with PayPal, whether that's events or giving. And I mean, when you look at some of the stats, you have 90% of millennials who have at some point or currently have a PayPal account. So that's pretty powerful. So that's one that I'm super excited about. And then as it relates specifically to Days of Giving, we've really expanded the gamification features. I think both of the Katies have alluded to progress indicators and those types of elements to make a Day of Giving successful. And any type of gamification is really important to build that excitement. But so now we have a map that builds in as people make a gift, a US map, and you can see by gradation which states are getting the most gifts, all of those types of things. And then we have social web tracking. So you can see if your volunteers are sharing content, who is making a gift because of that share. And that's really powerful as well, not only for those volunteers to be able to report back and say, hey, you helped bring in 25 gifts on Day of Giving, but for you to find out who else is sharing information about your day of giving that you didn't know about. And then that becomes another network you can use for the future day of giving. And then let's see.
Do the peer-to-peer volunteers, do they need to register as ambassadors, or do they just get a link that they can share and you track it that way?
Yeah, we do it based on, once they've made a gift, there's a Facebook and Twitter option to share the information that they've made a gift, and that ties back to that constituent, and then we can track it through the platform and see who responds on social. And obviously they can reuse that link. The link doesn't expire. So really some cool functionality there. And then we also have enhanced leaderboards that have rankings and challenges based on levels of participation. Those are coming out, I think, later this year. So a lot has happened on our platform around Day of Giving, just because we've seen how many of our schools are actively doing Days of Giving, and we wanted to give them even more that they could do through the platform.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. We are nearing the end of our hour, so I'd like to give the Katies the final word here. If you could each share with us one top trick or tip that you would think that fellow advancement pros and small shops should prioritize when making a Day of Giving work, what would it be? Let's start with KDM.
I would say don't bite off more than you can chew. It is really tempting to do that and to say, oh, we can do that. We can do that. It's tough for me to say no, but sometimes you just need to know your limits, and it's okay.
That is really KD.
I would say our past experiences, it's to be prepared and be prepared for any and everything. Plan ahead, come up with contingency plans, and make sure all of your volunteers, your staff members, internal and external staff, know what your contingency plan is and how you're going to report your results if you have to execute that way.
This is where it's great to have guests who have experience, because you distill it right down to the most important core principles and share it with the audience. And I couldn't agree with both of you more. I think those are really, really wise things to do. Know your limits and be prepared. It sounds like a Boy Scout advertisement from 1960 or something like that. KDD, KDM, Mirko, thank you so much for joining me today. I love these conversations because it's so interesting hearing how different institutions are exploring these different opportunities that are popping up and trying out different models to deliver results for their institutions. Really appreciate your spending time with us. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. And with that, I will say goodbye to our live audience. And once again, thank you, iModules and Stoner, for your support of today's broadcast. Thanks a lot, and see you next time on Advancement Live.
Thanks.